Hello, everyone. My name is Tansi Campbell. I am studying early childhood development here at Rochester College, and this is my last semester. Actually, I'll be done in December. I just have one other class besides this one. I have been actually working with children since 1991. I've worked in Head Start for about 9 years. I was a family service worker and a child advocate for children with disabilities in Head Start. And then for a while, I worked Head Start and an after school program in the city of Pontiac. Um, for that, I was a site coordinator at an elementary school. So I managed all the programming, all the kids, and the staff at that school. So I was responsible for busing logistics, meals, curriculum, partnerships, vendors, contracts, pretty much like a principal would be for running a school. Um, so I did that until funding ran out in 2009. I found myself unemployed for a little bit, and it was a grant funded program. And I was unemployed for about 11 months. It's when the economy crashed. And I learned a lot about myself then. I actually, like many other people, I couldn't find a job. I couldn't afford to go to school. Um, I could, barely afford my mortgage. And like many others, tapped into what retirement I had at the time to help sustain me until I found a new job, which actually is going to answer one of my other questions. So, for a while, I worked in software sales, enterprise software sales. A friend of mine was working in the industry and introduced me to the vice president of this company. And it's because it was an international company. We worked with people all over the world. And I had worked there not really as a salesperson, more they called us enterprise business reps. We were supposed to drive business. First of all, I probably should say I had no experience in sales, really. I had no experience in enterprise software for sure. And the interview process at this international company was grueling. It was round robin. They flew people in from all over the country to interview people. And later, I actually asked the vice president of North American sales why they hired me. And he said it was because at my interview, when they asked me if they, what my old boss would say about my work performance. And I actually handed him my cell phone, keyed up my boss's number, and said, "You can ask him yourself." And he thought that was, I guess, gutsy to do. But I had a good relationship with my manager, and he too lost his job when we were all laid off because of funding. So sometimes I guess I learned from that taking a risk and being honest actually pays off. So I like that job too, but I had an opportunity to work again in the industry working with young people, which is my passion. But the young people now that I'm working with are in secondary ed. They're high school students. Um, I currently work at Wayne State as an associate project director for the C2 pipeline program. It's housed under nursing. So it's a career and college readiness program for at risk youth. And we do 320 hours of after school during the academic year and then 6 weeks of summer programming. And I'm responsible for managing all the staff at 24 schools. That includes 24 full-time university staff, and then a few student assistants, and then all our point of service staff, the activity facilitators, and assistant site coordinators at all those schools. So altogether, it's 97 total people if we were fully staffed. So I'm also responsible for compliance. It is a grant program. It's a 21st Century Community Learning Center grant through the state of Michigan, and I am responsible for all the grant compliance. We do have an assistant project director who goes out and does site visits and makes sure that all of our schools are doing what they say, doing what we say they're going to do in our grant application. So she spot checks them, but I'm ultimately responsible for making sure that the staff are adhering to our grant. So um, I love my job. I find it extremely rewarding, especially when I get to go out to the sites and interact with the youth that we serve. Um, I met a young man the other day who is actually very committed to what he wants to do when he graduates. He's in an alternative high school, and he wants to be a lineman for DTE, and really that's all he ever talks about. So part of our mission is to help, first of all, ensure that the youth graduate when they're supposed to, and prepare them for a career or college. So we have to find out first what really interests them, and then assist them or help them along that pathway. I think what I like most about my job is it exposes children to opportunities that they may not otherwise have. So we bring them on campus at Wayne State. We are a pipeline program to Wayne State, but we really don't care if they come to Wayne State or not. It's just as long as they graduate on time and that they do something beyond high school, and they try new things and try and actually learn that through our failures or our trying attempts, that those are learning experiences, and pretty much that we shouldn't beat ourselves up over that. So that's what I do for a living. And um, let's see. So I talked about my major and my work experiences. I think the one thing I think of about trying something new myself that made me feel really uncomfortable when I was working in the sales job, um, I was called into my manager's office, and again, I'd only worked there by now for about a year. And my manager said to me, because he knew I was afraid of flying, the job required a lot of travel, and I had flown to the UK several times actually in that year, but always with somebody. He had said to me that their office in Belfast reached out and we're going to hire a similar department that I worked in, and since I was the highest producer in our sales metrics for that department, that they wanted me to come help them interview all of the potential candidates to staff their enterprise business department in Belfast. So I was terrified of flying by myself. I had never flown by myself. And he basically looked at me and said, I know you're afraid to fly by yourself. You don't have an option to say no here. So basically go online, do the bookings, and you leave tomorrow. So I had no choice. So I had to fly by myself. And of course, I'm at the airport in Detroit, and my name is Tansi, and it's spelled Tansi. So people say it many different ways: Tansai, Tansi, Tanzi, several different ways. And I had a different last name at the time. I was married to, I had a different last name. I was married to somebody else than who I'm married to now. So my full name was Tansi Leake, and then a dash Yankus. So I kept hearing something over as I'm waiting for my flight, eating and trying to calm myself down. Actually, I kept hearing something over the PA say, Tansi Leaky Yankus, Tansi Leaky Yankus, and it finally dawned on me that they were saying my name. So I went to where I was supposed to board my flight, and there was nobody there, and I kind of panicked. So I went to the nearest kiosk, and I was talking to the people there, and they said, "Oh, your flight was canceled. That there were problems with it, so you have to run all the way across, basically the airport to catch a different flight." So I did that, and barely made it on the plane. And the plane was, we'll just say, sketchy. It still had like ashtrays, and this was in 2012. It still had ashtrays by by where you sit. So the plane was old and not very big, and I was flying to Heathrow, and then to Dublin, and then to Belfast. But that's not quite the route we took, because that plane had problems. So we flew from Detroit to Chicago to somewhere on the East Coast. I can't remember. I think it was Baltimore. Maybe it might have been Newark, New Jersey, and boarded a different plane. So that was good, and then flew to Heathrow, or not to Heathrow, flew to Frankfurt, Germany, and had a layover there for about 6 hours, and then from there flew to Heathrow, and then from there flew to Dublin, and then I was done flying. A car got me and drove me to Belfast. So that whole experience took about 2 days, and maybe a little bit longer actually. I was totally wiped out from all the problems with the flight, and the stress actually of flying by myself and dealing with all those problems by myself, and in basically countries that, or I hadn't been to Germany before, so in places I was unfamiliar with. So I came out of that. Here I am. So after that, I thought, you know what? There's really not anything I can't do. So it really helped boost my confidence, I guess. So that was an experience that made me extremely uncomfortable, but I learned a lot about myself, and I guess my determination. Much like my degree here at Rochester College, I've been attempting to go to school off and on since 1996, and life, something's, I was a single mom for a long time. Uh, Had to work 2 and 3 jobs at times, just to keep, roof over our heads and food and clothes. So um, graduating now, I guess, is just I'm gonna cry, is a goal of mine that I've been pursuing for a very long time. So talk to you about social media. So I'm an adult learner, if you haven't noticed. Um, I use social media. I use Facebook. I have an Instagram account. I have a Twitter account, which I think I've never tweeted. I can't remember how to access my Twitter account. Instagram, never post anything on that either. Everyone had one, so I thought I needed one too. And I'm not sure Pinterest would be considered social media, but um, I do have a Pinterest account, um, and a Facebook account, kind of too. We have one for my job, and I have my own personal one. And I would classify myself as a consumer. I really don't put much out there. I am on Facebook every morning, but I'm really looking at what are my friends doing, um, what I'm really involved in animal rescue and adoption. So I'm looking at those groups that I follow, trying to help network cats and dogs and sometimes farm animals, and getting homes and some advocacy when it comes to animals' rights, as well as advocacy for children's rights. So most of my time on Facebook is sharing out information, or sharing out information about animals and or children, and mostly animals, and consuming information, or just keeping up with my friends. I don't really post very much personal things. I share things, but I don't really post very much stuff. I think the most recent thing I posted was I had entered my two beagles in a calendar contest for uh, uh, a benefit, really, for an animal rescue that I follow and help support. It's called Hound Song Rescue, and they won a place in the calendar, so I was pretty excited about that. So I shared that. Of course, we'll be buying a whole bunch of those calendars, um, and everyone's gonna be getting one for Christmas, of course, that too. Um, but besides that, I don't really use social media. We do at my job. That's one of the reasons why I selected this class as my elective, to better understand how we're using social media where I work. Not necessarily how I use social media, although um, it is fascinating to me that what I've read so far in our textbook, and has already got me thinking about when I retire. So I'm 50. I'm thinking about retiring when I'm 60. So, but not stop working. So my husband and I are exploring business options. So I I find what I've read in our textbook fascinating, because it's helping me think how we use social media in my current position, how we use social media, and who our target audiences are. I'll probably do that as one of my case studies. But so let's see. I don't use Snapchat. I do have a YouTube account. I have put some things on YouTube, usually for school. I did discover iMovie on my cell phone and made some movies and shared those on YouTube. Movies about my dogs, a movie about my dad and his birthday, and just, silly stuff like that. So I do have that on YouTube. Um, I think one thing I've noticed, answering question here about companies or organizations reaching out to me, I've noticed that while I'm on Facebook, um, I'm going to pause this for a second.